All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So, today we are going to be doing kind of a short breakdown of the main content releases of VEILBREAKER. So, basically, VEILBREAKER is so large that I'm going to be splitting this video into multiple parts because I want to talk about my impressions on like the Archon Hunts and the VEILBREAKER quest. And also what's going to be locked behind next week whenever we get Call's Garrison. And I have a few short notes of things that I've already looked at, but the quality of life changes that were applied in this update it's pages. It's pages and pages and pages. It took me like an hour and 45 minutes to just do the patch notes on stream yesterday. And we streamed for like 12 total hours, and there's still more to do. So we're just going to talk about what the new content is and how I'm enjoying the new content basically, and what you can expect going forward for next week from Call's stuff. First and foremost, though, for the VEILBREAKER quest, we're not going to do spoilers for the VEILBREAKER quest. TLDR, no spoilers. Quest good. I think the quest is very good. It's a really enjoyable. You're playing as Call, which of course you already knew. Almost certainly. There are no like prerequisites for the mission, I'll tell you that. But it is a very good time, and it's a good introduction to, I think, what we're going to be doing in the Call missions that we're going to be getting next week. So, I think the VEILBREAKER quest, very successful. I enjoy what they did with the characters in it, and it's fun. The other thing I will note is that the base customization on Call is available, even though like the shop and stuff is not yet. And I think it's really solid. He has like Void Shell by default and stuff once you get to that point. And it's all really nice. I have been very much enjoying just that part, and I am thinking that the Call's Garrison stuff, whenever we get it, is going to be very good. But that's what's up with the VEILBREAKER quest. Now let's talk about the Archon Hunts. In terms of content, this is pretty much the big thing that we got, and there's a lot to talk about here, because I think that this content has a lot of potential that it is not meeting at all. Okay, Archon Hunts. So, this is basically the big sortie. This is a weekly. And for that, the first two missions are pretty much normal sortie stuff. They are at a higher level. I did play it in a 4-player squad, but solo, it's just going to be the same thing, except for the enemies are going to have lower health, because the enemies actually get scaling health based on how many people are in your party for this content. So it will pretty much be the same no matter how many people you play with. Obviously, more people is always better, though, for things like a defense, and it is a mobile defense and a regular defense this week. And then, of course, you have the third mission, which we're going to get to in a moment. So, those first two missions, pretty normal stuff, which is totally fine. I don't mind that at all. I think the focus of this should be the big Archon showdown, and then like the first two missions are just your lead up, like maybe forming a squad through just the matchmaking and stuff to get some people together, and I think that's good. The Archon showdowns, however, have a pretty major problem, and that pretty major problem is that the fight with Boreal is not engaging or fun. It's not interesting. It is almost all of those things, but well, let's talk about the bad. Almost all Warframe powers have no effect on Boreal. The powers that I've seen have some effect are that Titania's butterflies look like they can kind of tickle him. And Octavia's one can do some damage to him, but that's disadvantageous actually because of the way that attenuation works, which we're going to talk about in a moment. And all forms of armor stripping do not work. So you cannot use like the Vastalock with Shattering Impact, all of the armor strips which they just made better with this update in the quality of life area. All that stuff, nothing works. Nothing works in terms of you using powers on Boreal, and nothing works in terms of like stripping armor off of Boreal. All of that stuff does not function, and I'm never a fan of just making it so that this enemy is immune to everything. That's lame pretty much every time, and all of that is present here. In addition to that, usually, our response to that type of content would be, well, we're just going to self-buff ourselves to high hell and kill this enemy super fast. But this enemy has attenuation. Because they're immune to everything, and they have attenuation, and they have status limits, what that basically means is that if you buff yourself like a ton, like what we did is we had double Thermal Sunder buffs for like 250% more elemental damage. We had like 100% plus Roar, and then we were also doing Mirage's Eclipse, plus Volt Shield, plus buffed 1 Volt for like hundreds and thousands % more damage. All of those things together actually lowered our damage. So my advice is to not try and make your damage higher. like maybe throw Roar or like 1 buff in there, and if the numbers that come out of the enemy are higher, then probably keep doing it. But if you buff your damage too much, the attenuation will just turn up, and then you won't do any damage. You won't do any more damage. You'll be putting all this effort in to not do any more damage. The best way I've found to get around the attenuation is to kind of like jump scare the attenuation, because it has to calculate your DPS and it takes a second to kick in. So using the Kuva Heck, you can use its alt fire, which shoots a ton of pellets and damage, to do like big chunks of the Archon's health, and then you just have to wait until the attenuation kind of forgets that you shot it with the Kuva Heck and like turns off, and then you can shoot it again to deal like another big chunk of life. It's really lame. It's a super lame way to have to go about it. The fight is being kind of actively ruined by attenuation, because it makes it so that the strategy is bring a Warframe that doesn't die, like Revenant or Nezha or Rhino, or, you know, the Trinity is really good. There's a ton of, like, you know, Warframes that just don't die. I'm sure you can make Grendel or a Naros or Nidus. All of those are going to just don't die is the #1 step. And then bring a gun that won't run out of ammo, because pretty much all the guns of decent quality do the exact same damage in terms of like their overall DPS if you're continually shooting at the enemy. So stuff like the Nell Prime is good, because you can just hold left click and let the bullets enter his head while you stand there not caring until one of his mechanics kicks in. And he does have 2 interesting mechanics, and I wish he just had more interesting mechanics and health gates, and the fight wasn't about really how much damage you're doing to him, and it was more about doing the mechanics of his fight, because every time his mechanics pop up, they're interesting and can be built for. And what I mean by that is that the 2 interesting mechanics that Boreal has is he has one where he will become invincible and back up and summon the Aerolists, I believe they're called. They're the big sentients with like the huge arms and the canisters on their chest. He summons 2 to 3, 2 if you're solo, I think it's 3 if you're in any kind of a group. It might be 2 for 2 players as well, though I didn't try a duo of the mission. He summons those guys, and those guys have a certain specific weapons that are good against them. The Stropha is really good against them. Most shotguns are really good against them. The Arca, the 10 Arca Plasmor is really good against them. Most weapons that shoot in that kind of specific way, like the Stropha and the Arca do, are really solid for breaking those canisters, so you can actually get at their actual health. Also, the 777 amp for the operators is solid for them too, so you can use operators to, you know, tackle those enemies whenever they show up and make those like a lot easier. There's strategy there. There's certain weapons that are good or bad against those enemies, and that part's good. I like that as a mechanic, to have him summon some dudes that have to, you know, have a real thing for you to do, that have certain weapons that they want you to bring. That is mechanically interesting, and you can prepare for it, and there's something to be done. In addition, the other mechanic is he kind of just creates a pyramid around him, and you need to shoot the points of the pyramid where like all corners meet. So like the bottom 4 zones and then the top, you need to shoot those individually, which is just like a small, like, you know, little mechanical skill test of just like aim at these and shoot them. But it's a mechanic. It's something for you to do besides like just empty magazines into this guy's head until he dies, I guess. And it's way more interesting than just dumping Nell rounds into his face until he falls over. So basically, the fight is kind of mechanically devoid, which I was hoping it was going to be mechanically rich. It only has those 2 things, and there's nothing else to the fight. Besides that, though, at least it doesn't take a super long time with halfway decent guns. It takes like 5 to 10 minutes-ish. I think in a squad, our time was like 6 or so minutes, and I did it solo in about 7.5 with the Kuva Heck. And, you know, I mean, it's not super long. It's once a week, and the rewards are really good. The rewards are really good. I think the Archon Shards are great, and the additional kind of sortie reward plus is nice. There's like 8,000 endo and a few other things in there. If you care about Kuva, I think it's like 12k Kuva that can come out of that. There's boosters and stuff and all this business, and that stuff's fine. Sortie rewards are there, but the Archon Shards are the big part, and the Archon Shards are really, really good. So we're going to talk about those real quick. Okay, Archon Shards. So basically, if you're in the Helminth, once you get the segment from the new quest and you build it, which takes 24 hours, the material requirements are really, really low for the new segment. It will appear in the Helminth menu. You can look at the Archon Shards. Now, the main focus here is not going to be what every single Warframe wants in terms of its shards, though I probably am going to make that video. But I just want to talk about what these shards do, because obviously we saw the blue shard, which has health, shield capacity, energy max, armor, and health regenerated per second. I think there are Warframes that are going to want these, but overall, these definitely are the weakest shards, and these are the shards for week 1. I think regardless, though, you are going to want these because I think there's a good chunk of Warframes that energy max is actually really, really good, because it means on a lot of frames that really need prime flow, you can actually drop prime flow because you can just get 250 max energy from these with 5 of them, and then what do you need prime flow for? You pretty much have that entire bonus just from that, and that's especially considering like Tau Forged Shards allow you to just do like 3 of these and get basically the same effect. Plenty, I think, applications for the Azure Archon Shards that's going to make you want them. And then we have the Amber Archon Shards. So these shards, I think people are going to overlook them and not value them highly enough. We have 30% maximum energy is filled on spawn, which does have applications. 100% effectiveness of health orbs, which does not have applications. There is possibly some memery with this that you can do with equilibrium, but I don't think that that's going to be worth it. And then we have plus 50% effectiveness on energy orbs. So this does have potential. The energy orbs thing, this is basically energized, and the really important note about like the way that this is energized is that this is unnerfed energized, basically, but with a 100% chance. So it's like turbo unnerfed energized with a lower number from a single shard. So plus 50% effectiveness means if you pick up a 50 energy orb, you're going to get 75 energy instead. And that's just with one of these shards. Whenever you stack this effect, and when you get the Tau Forged version, which is just all of these numbers plus 50%, so you get 75% effectiveness. If you were to get 2 Tau Forged Amber Shards, that's 150% effectiveness on energy orbs, which means on 50 energy orbs, that is like for every 50%, it's another 25 energy. So you're getting 125 energy from a 50 energy orb, and you're getting half that from a 25 energy orb, which is considerably more energy than you would normally be getting. There is, I think, some validity to wanting to roll with these and maybe forego energize on certain Warframes. I don't know if that's really going to be the plan compared to some of the other things you can do and how many Warframes are really going to want that, but there is potential for it. Also, a notable thing, the maximum energy is filled on spawn for certain Warframes, namely exactly Titania, who uses Preparation. This can be really good. I definitely can see Titania wanting to run 2 Tau Forged Amber Archon Shards just to completely not need Preparation at all, just start with max energy, and then instead being able to run Efficiency in that slot, so you not only have a ton of energy, but you get also a ton of efficiency and can just use your powers basically forever. That seems potentially useful, and for any Warframe that just needs to start with energy in order to like get the ball rolling, but has a really good energy economy after that, this is potentially really, really effective. And then one that I think a lot of people are going to sleep on, casting speed. There are plenty of Warframes where the difference between you being alive or being dead is how fast you can cast your ability that keeps you alive. There are a bunch of them. Revenant really loves casting speed. Protea really loves casting speed. Ember really loves casting speed. There are a bunch of frames that love casting speed, and this is a good amount of casting speed, especially for Tau Forged Shards. 2 Tau Forged Shards are going to give you, what is it? That's 37 each. It's like 70+%. 70+% casting speed, which is outrageous, and we can't get that in any other way right now. And just 2 of these is equivalent to the only casting speed mod that we have. So if you use 3 of these shards, Tau Forged, you're really not going to have casting times, I think, which is going to be extremely, extremely effective. I am planning to use these ideally on my Protea to really turn up the casting speed and be able to throw like tons of her 1, get her 2 really set up super fast, and so on and so forth. And I think that's going to be actually really good. And then kind of a memey one, but one I think I really am actually going to use, parkour velocity. Notable, this is a lot of parkour velocity. Parkour velocity is a stat that is just generally very low and very effective. 15% does not sound like a lot, but reminder that 21%, or it might be 22 something percent, is what the rank 10 parkour mods give you. So this being 15, whenever it's a Tau Forged, it's giving you the full effect of those rank 10 parkour mods on one of these, which means you can get double that effect. And one of those mods makes you super fast. So what is 2 times that effect going to do? It is going to make you a rocket ship in terms of shooting around with your bullet jumps, and you're going to be super, super fast. I probably am going to want to use 2 of these Tau Forged on my Mesa, because one of the things that she doesn't do well is, you know, zoop through the mission really fast once she's done doing her Mesa thing. So I think that this is going to be really good on frames that don't have a lot of speed and just want to be able to rush to the end of the mission really fast, and this will increase the efficiency on all of those frames by quite a bit. So yeah, Amber Shards, quite good. And then Red Shards, we had a lot of ideas about what these could be, and I think that these are about, you know, a quarter of what we thought it could be. These are the Crimson Archon Shards. So we have 25% melee critical damage, 25% primary status chance, and we have 25% secondary critical chance. I do not think any of these three are really going to be used. I probably will experiment with secondary critical chance on Mesa, but I don't think that these are going to be worthwhile on really any frame, and especially primary status chance kind of has no chance of being good. I think if it was primary critical chance, there's a much, much higher chance that you'd see this maybe be used on, like, Ivara, but for status chance, it's just not going to be worth a Crimson Archon Shard whenever you have the other options of 10% ability strength, 10% ability duration. These are both obviously really good. 5 of these regular shards is either 50% strength or 50% duration, and 5 of the Tau Forged ones is 75% strength or 75% duration. That means you can get more strength than is available on any mod except Blind Rage, and also the Umbral mod, but you technically need all 3 Umbral mods in order to do that, and it's also only 2% less, from just this. 75% strength is an immense amount to have, and 75% duration is going to be useful on a lot of Warframes. Namely, Zaku wants more than anything to have an additional 75% duration, because it will make Zaku's life infinitely easier. Plenty of frames want duration, plenty of frames want strength. You definitely are going to want as many Crimson Archon Shards as you can possibly get your hands on, because so many frames want both of these stats, or either of these stats. So yeah, these are going to be extremely sought after. They're by far the strongest, I guess I could say. In terms of like power, I think overall I probably want mostly the Amber Archon Shards, because I think that these are more interesting, and more of the frames that I tend towards playing I think want this. And of course the utility effect on like being super fast with parkour velocity, which also can be, if you stack 5 of them, is probably fucking hilarious, is going to be what I'm shooting for. But I definitely am going to be getting every single red one that I can find in order to do some hilarious nonsense with power strength and duration and all this other just absurd nonsense that you can do. Moving on. Yeah, this is good. Archon Hunts, solid. Stuff that is delayed until next week that is notable. Obviously, whenever you log in for this update during these like first 2 weeks, although that's being extended to the 22nd, which is worth noting because there were some day 1 problems with getting Styanax to everyone. Someone randomly subbed. There's some day 1 problems with getting Styanax to everyone, so that 2 weeks is actually being extended out to the 22nd, so we actually have quite a bit of time in order for you to log in and get Styanax. But notable thing here is that you cannot farm your second Styanax right now until Call's Garrison gets started next week. So this includes the Call Weeklies, which are going to start being available next week, which you're going to use to farm all of the things that we're going to be talking about, because this is the stuff you can't do yet. So that is your second Styanax, the Slaytra, the Egret, and the Aphentis, all of which I have used. We're going to talk about my impressions on those in a moment. The Fog of War Ephemera, which if you link in chat, you can preview. It looks really cool. More of the Calls unlockable customization, which we talked about, I like so far. Additional Archon Shards each week, so you're going to get more than one each week if you are doing this with Call. And then the Archon Mods. So the Archon Mods notably were available initially because you could get them through transmutation, and they're going for quite a lot of platinum in-game if you got them already through transmutation, and I probably should have done that, honestly. But the big thing here is that I don't think any of the Archon mods are that impactful. There's some interesting stuff to be done there, namely with like Volt and Gyre and frames that can deal electric procs, and like Wisp probably wants it and stuff, because I think Archon Stretch is really good. But overall, don't worry too much about the Archon mods. I would say the other stuff is probably going to be more important. Also, initial impressions. The Slaytra is a machete that I likely won't use. This is Call's weapon. Because it doesn't have access to the Exodia that the Zaw versions of these weapons have, I don't really see much reason to use a regular machete when the Zaw counterparts exist and can generate energy for you, so probably not going to use the Slaytra. The Aphentis is the signature weapon of Styanax. This weapon, I was not expecting it to be an explosive, like, dart gun, but that is what it is. It has a very small explosive radius, extremely limited ammo, and whenever you throw it, the buff that it puts down is good, but only lasts for 10 seconds, though it lasts longer if you kill enemies while it's ongoing. Overall, I really don't think that his spear gun is very good. The Aphentis is not great. The Egret, however, are basically a secondary Brahma. And the important thing about that is that we don't have, or we didn't have, this weapon type as a secondary. These are grenades. So instead of firing the Brahma, you can just throw these and then manually detonate them. And those two things will do pretty much the same thing. Obviously, the Egret do not have access to Hunter munitions, so you can't like convert that into slash procs. But testing them on the Steel Path, they do quite a lot of damage and are pretty effective. So that's actually going to open up a number of different possible builds where if you need a big AOE explosive weapon that does like big burst damage, you can bring that in your secondary slot, and then your primary slot can be a weapon that's like more utility based or more single target based, of which there are a lot of good ones. So I think that the Egret is probably going to be like one of the more meta defining weapons as long as it doesn't get nerfed here within like the next few weeks or so. So if you're looking for one of the weapons to grab early whenever we start getting access to this Call Syndicate stuff, the Egret is by far my suggestion because that weapon seems really, really strong. So yeah, that is notable. And then short notes. This is going to be just some like stuff that I've come across so far with the quality of life stuff and changes that they've added. Also, to add on to this, I just realized I did not put it in the notes. The new weapon switch speed feels incredible. Really, really good. Also, in addition to that, the swapping to operator and back speed is also absolutely immaculate. Hugely better. Immensely better in both parts. We wanted that for a while. Obviously, the thing with switching to your operator is a thing they just needed to fix from whenever they changed it to not be host-based. But both of those are really, really good. Now for short notes. So, Archon Shards have been changed to be able to be turned in for 2,500 focus now. That actually means that you have an increase in terms of how much focus total you get from the Eidolons. So just for Terry, which is relevant for new players, you will get 27,500 focus, which is okay if you really need to farm uncapped, because none of this focus that you're going to be getting is going to be capped at all. However, for a new player, that's going to take longer than just doing the Zaramon. So in general, you're probably still not going to farm this as a new player, as opposed to just trying to hit your cap on the Zaramon. And the Zaramon dual farming for all those arcanes and stuff that you're going to want anyway is just generally going to be more effective, I think. And I just put a video out recently on that if you don't know what I'm talking about. So go check that out if you want to farm some focus. It is notable, though, that, you know, it's uncapped. And for Tridolons, if you can do Tridolons in like an okay amount of time, say like 10 or 12 minutes, if you're just matching into it, if you're regularly getting like 10 or 12 minutes and like the Tridolon is done and you're not having a bad time, that is 177,000 focus now, which is pretty significant. That is a significant chunk of focus, and that can be used to, you know, be worked into any different school. And in terms of your cap, for me personally, as someone who's at Legendary 2, I have about a 400,000 and change focus cap. So if you can do a 3x3 of Tridolons, which means you do Terry, Gant, Hydro 3 times in one night, which is 50 minutes, that means that you're going to get all of the focus that you could get in one day, in one night on the plains, which that is compelling. That is a lot of focus. So that brings a good reason to do this for sure. Even if you're not doing it like the most effectively, a 3x3 is not hard to do, and you could do it solo, but I really would not suggest that. Also, some weapon notes. The Tsar, the Brahma, the Proboscis Ceranos, the Ignis Wraith, and many other weapons like that, these are all fine. These weapons are pretty much the same as they were, except they must run ammo mutation. You must be running ammo mutation on them, otherwise you're going to have a bad time. That can be Vigilante Armaments, which is probably the best one to be running, but especially if you are going to want to be like firing it willy-nilly, that's not going to work. You do need to think about firing these weapons now because your ammo is very, very limited. So if you're going to be using the Brahma, you need to be placing your shots appropriately. And if you're just firing into a wall and hoping it works out and not, you know, being precise with where these bombs are going and making sure they kill enemies, you can get your ammo back, it's not going to work out for you. I think overall, in terms of like the nerfs to these weapons, I think this is a success. I think that it makes you have to think, it makes you have to pay attention, you have to know how much ammo you have left, and the weapons are still really good. So it feels like a complete success in terms of these weapons. What should be happening? Like the stated goal, I think, has been accomplished, maybe with the exception of the Tsar. The Tsar might still have too much ammo. But in terms of like the Brahma, the Proboscis Ceranos, and all that stuff, like those really big exploding weapons, those are fine. The Ignis Wraith still doesn't have ammo problems. It's like more reasonably restricted now in that you do need ammo mutation in order to make sure you can keep up with it. But like, it's just more reasonable now. It's not like dead and it doesn't have like no ammo. Ignis Wraith still totally usable, pretty much the same way we were using it before. And then yeah, the Tsar might still need another turn down, but in general, I think this is a big success. Weapons that are dead. Weapons that are just randomly dead, and also some weapons that like were expected to be dead. The Ogress and the Kuva Ogress is pretty dead. It has no ammo, and the Ogress's whole thing was like giant area denial and like killing enemies by just like, you know, saturation of fire. And because you don't have as many bullets, you can't saturate the area with rockets. Because you can't do that, the Ogresses are pretty much dead. You could probably use them in lower level content, depending on what frame you are, and obviously like with Protea and doing some other solutions like that for ammo, you will be fine shooting this weapon, but it is pretty rough out there. The Tonkor got some huge nerfs. I actually don't know why. I don't think anyone was using the Tonkor or the Kuva Tonkor. They weren't good before this, and now they're like mega dead. Same thing goes for the Flux Rifle. The Flux Rifle got some like huge ammo nerfs, seemingly for no reason. I don't know why they nerfed the Flux Rifle. Kind of a weird take, but I wasn't using it anyway, and I'm certainly not going to start, so that's weird. And then the Bubonico. So the Bubonico is mega dead. Mega dead. Battery weapons in general, with some exceptions, like the Cycron is mostly fine, are dead. Battery weapons are destroyed unless they are a kit gun or the Cycron. The Bubonico fires its alt fire one time, and you are out of fucking ammo. So if you were planning on using its alt fire, which the whole intent of the Bubonico's like system is that you alt fire it, which procs a bunch of status, and then you use the main fire, which is a big shotgun. But you can't even really do that anymore. And yeah, it's not tenable. The ammo economy is not workable. It is completely useless. Similarly, and for like the exact same reasons, the Basmu. You shoot it, and then it's going to spend 6.5 years recharging, and it's not usually going to kill very much of what you were shooting anyway. So yeah, the Basmu is really bad. And then the Shidu had its ammo energy, or its ammo recharge reduced to 1/8 of what it was, which is just completely unusable. It is in the trash can, on fire, being buried in a grave that is underwater at the bottom of the ocean. The Shidu is fucking dead. And then we have a notable one of a weapon that did not do anything. It did nothing. It did nothing wrong. The Fulmin. I need to note this here, that why did the Fulmin get nerfed at all in any way? I understand that it's a battery weapon that is a decent shotgun, but the Fulmin is like a new player stepping stone to using the Tenet Archiplasmor, which arguably the Tenet Archiplasmor got buffed in this update because it picks up more ammo per ammo drop now. So I have no idea why the Fulmin was touched at all, because all it was a decent, like, new player weapon for people who were going to use Zephyr only. It was just a really good tool for people going down that road to try and get to, like, solid power pretty quickly. And I was never using it in any, like, type of situation where I could farm a better weapon, of which there are a shitload. So I have no clue why the Fulmin got touched at all, instead of being, like if it was going to get touched, it should have been buffed. Like, we should have a Tenet Fulmin that's really good, or something like that. Nerfs to the Fulmin don't make any sense to me, and it is baffling. I think that the Fulmin nerfs, at the very least, should be completely reverted here. Because they don't, it literally just makes no sense. Like, is this because I did the free to play through and I showed that Zephyr and the Fulmin together have like a unique synergy that's good in that one specific situation? Because anyone that used the Fulmin by itself knows that that weapon, like, maybe with 6 Forma and all the best mods in the game, is okay to mediocre on Steel Path. Like, I don't get it. That one is the most baffling one to me by far. I have no clue why the Fulmin got touched in this way. Completely outrageous. But mostly, I think that the weapon changes are fine. It's really unfortunate, mostly for anyone that was using battery weapons. If you're using, like, using and enjoying the Bubonico, it's useless. Shidu, same. Fulmin, same. Basmu, same. Pretty much any of that stuff is just gone. So yeah, they need to take another pass on what they did to all the battery weapons, I think, because it's really outrageous. But otherwise, for all of, like, these AOE weapons and stuff, I feel like they got tuned down in a way that makes sense and makes you build accordingly to what the downsides of the weapon are, and so on and so forth, and that stuff's good. Starter buffs. So, I have not done a ton of testing with the starter buffs. They all seem good. I was a little disappointed that the increase to duration on Volts 2 went from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. I was really, really hoping for 15 seconds on that one, but it is 20% more, technically, which is better than nothing. And the rest of the buffs for Volt seem good. And then the mag buffs, I have not tested personally, but people have been telling me that they've been really enjoying them, so that's nice. And then Excal, which I tested pretty significantly, his one is extremely fun. Absolutely phenomenal. He's going to be hard to not recommend to new players, I think, with how fun his one is, because he is basically just doing Judgment Cut Virgil shit. It's really, really good. He is the storm that is approaching. It is going to be real tough for me to not pick him just because he seems extremely fun now for the next free-to-play through. So yeah, he seems like he's in a real solid spot, and Excal was already just generally pretty good. His 3 still doesn't seem worth using at high levels, but maybe at low levels it can be like a good clear. I haven't tested that part of it yet. Also, Styanax initial impressions. He seems good. I have put together like a rudimentary build for him that still probably needs a bit more refining, and he seems like he's solid. I have been really enjoying him. He's just the Gates of Babylon, just throwing infinite spears. He has energy regeneration for himself and the entire party. His survival seems a little questionable. I might need to turn up the survivability on him a bit, but in general, he seems like he's super solid. His armor strip is really good and fun. It's a backhand with his shield, so just Styanax keeping the pimp hand strong is extremely satisfying, especially whenever you add the sticky grenades that we just got to it, just disrespecting enemies in a very enjoyable way. And his one, while I think it is the weakest of his abilities, all of his abilities are good, and it is kind of a hard choice in terms of what to replace. And potentially the most effective build for Styanax is to remove his 4, but if you were going to remove his 4, I don't think that would be smart, because it's kind of the point of playing him. So you could see better results with like AOE weapons and just using his 1, 2, and 3, but I think that gameplay style is actually done better by other frames, so you're better off just using like the big AOE damage of his 4 to do things, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll talk more about that in their own videos, basically, for like all the starter buffs, and Styanax is going to, of course, get his own video. But that's where I'm at. That's kind of the first impressions on what's going on with the Veilbreaker. I do think that attenuation, I mean, across the entire game, everywhere that attenuation is present, I talked about it for hours last night on stream. Everywhere that attenuation is present in Warframe, it makes the game worse actively, and it just makes every encounter that has it less fun and more restrictive and less friendly for new players, instead of being more friendly for new players, which is what it's supposed to do. Is it's supposed to turn down like the super high end and make it so that the super high end is enjoyable for the low end, but instead it just makes every fight miserable, because it makes this enemy that has an extremely large amount of health have like infinity health basically, and just take a long time to shoot, which is not engaging in any way. It doesn't give you like a mechanic to do and get better at. You just have to keep shooting the guy until he dies. But yeah, hopefully things get fixed in terms of like the Archon fights. I do think that, you know, the rewards and stuff are very good. I'm very excited for the call weeklies and things, and like a lot of these other changes I think are going generally pretty well so far, outside of a few different weapons that got hit too hard or didn't get hit enough perhaps. But yeah, that's what's up with the new update. I am going to be streaming tonight. We're doing a sponsored stream after prime time, so come check it out. That's over on twitch.tv/Brozime. And then, of course, these notes are going to be up and available on brozime.com, so go check that out. If you have not been over there before, there's plenty of guides and stuff that I have thrown up there and all that good business. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you hopefully tonight, I suppose, or tomorrow. Also, hey everyone, we have a new outro. So sorry this has taken a little while to get going for those of you that are over on the Patreon, but thank you so much to all of the $10+ patrons. Brutus Salazar, Dylan Dworsky, Ithrain, Jeremy Stevens, Joshua Adams, Malik X. Williams, Mitchda, Trent Hallmark, Victor, and Zach Zahner. Thank you very much for being $10 patrons. And also, thank you very much to just all the patrons in general. It's been really awesome to try and get this big website stuff off the ground. And I hope you guys continue to support me and are enjoying the content that is going up there, including this video. So yeah, it's been a fantastic time so far, and hopefully we can just keep it going. Have a good one, everybody. Hopefully you guys enjoy the new outro as well. I think it came out pretty nice. And that should do it. Later, all.